What is up, YouTube fam? Robbie C here. Today we are talking about something that is holding you back from major distance. That's hilarious. It was 5.4 miles an hour. And honestly, it may not be entirely your fault. But before we dive in, we got to ask the most important question of the day. How you doing today, Blake? You having a good day?
So catch me if I fall.
Okay, so if I'm thinking about future Robbie packaging this up and sending it off to the masses, it's gonna have some form of a like distance potential, or here's something holding you back. And I know lots of people, when it comes to watching YouTube videos, and if this video does well, this may be the first time you're ever here on the channel, so welcome, glad to have you. I'll tell you what I think the problem is. We'll spend the rest of the video kind of dissecting it, but if you just want to grab a nugget and head out and hopefully you find your distance potential, once again, glad to have you here. Here's the nugget. I believe that people are accelerating at the wrong time during their form, and there are several factors holding them back to where they don't really get an option to accelerate at the correct time in their form. And if we could figure out when to actually add the acceleration and the speed to our throw, watch out, Anthony Barella, we're coming for you, brother. What do we mean by accelerating at the wrong time of the form? An analogy that I've been using in lessons, spoiler alert, I do actually do online lessons. Link will be in the description below if you're interested in working on your backhand, forehand, or putting. Love to help folks with all three, and the lessons are just getting better and better as we continue to learn more and more. In one of my favorite film franchises of all time, The Fast and the Furious, there is a race happening between Brian and Dom Toretto. Brian by the late Paul Walker, Dom Toretto by the one and only Vin Diesel. In this car race, they have this juice that is injected into their engine that causes them to go significantly faster. The NOS is injected into the engine, and it gives you this one-time major boost of speed. And in an iconic race in the first film, Brian hits his NOS trying to go fast and get to the end of the finish line. But unfortunately, he hits the juice too early. And a very famous line then follows with, "Too soon, Junior," and he proceeds to hit the NOS a little bit later, and it gives him just enough to out-edge Brian and win the race. In this setting, I think that most amateurs are Brian and most of the pros are Dom Toretto, with perhaps a little more hair. Let me demonstrate this so that you can see what part of the form or what part of the throw we're talking about. I believe that in the disc golf throw, there is a point where we get to accelerate. We get to add juice into the throw to try to go fast. And for most human beings, we really only get one opportunity to truly invest energy and try to really push that speed. We can continue to ramp, we continue to have explosivity throughout the throw, but we really get one major point to hit that NOS, hit that juice, and really send things forward. When does this happen? For most people, I think it's happening when you're in this part of the peak of the reach back. And because there are other factors that we'll talk about in a second, you're having to inject the most power into the throw at the very back of the reach back in order to get things started. It's almost a bit like lighting the cannon or lighting a fuse so that the gunpowder can explode back here, and then the bullet gets pushed all the way down the barrel. And we're trying to do this sort of approach as we are sending the shot forward. The problem with this method is that in injecting the speed and all of our power in the NOS back here, by the time we get all the way out to the front, we're losing a lot of steam, and therefore we're losing a lot of explosivity, and therefore we're losing a lot of distance. Which begs the question, when is the right time to accelerate, Mr. YouTube man? I really think that when we should be accelerating our absolute fastest is once we have reached the power pocket, and once we've reached the sort of like fold where we've gotten the elbow ahead and the door is now open, that we can then accelerate the hand as fast as possible. If we think about this from a pitching standpoint in Major League Baseball, these guys are throwing over 80, 90 miles an hour. How do we get Aroldis Chapman throwing 100 mile an hour plus fastball, and he's not coming in from the explosiveness of all the way around here, boom, it hits 100 miles an hour. That's just a very slow arm motion, and I think that we are truly trying to hit those fast speeds from going all the way back here and getting this to still maintain and have speed all the way to the very end. Arm speed at its fastest is coming from what's a faster movement, going here or here. I think for the logical folks, we're saying that option B, where it's just that short explosivity, is the faster motion. But Mr. YouTube man, how do we get to that position? Well, I think there's a couple things that people are doing that are causing you to sort of, before we even talk about that, that are holding you back from ever reaching that position. And a lot of it comes from where that noggin's going. One of the questions when we do online lessons that I ask folks is, have you videoed your form before? Have you taken a video of your form? Have you looked at what you look like when you're throwing? And for most people, the answer is no. And I'll even ask students who have videoed form and brought it to me, have you watched the video back? And they'll be like, no, I haven't got a chance to look. And some will say they've looked and they don't realize what they're actually doing, or they're shocked at what their form actually looks like. You're not alone in this. Trust me, it happens to all of us the first time we film ourselves. Even for those of us who film ourselves like twice weekly, it still shocks us sometimes what we look like when we're throwing the disc. Where the head goes, the body will follow. So if my head is all the way back here and then I try to throw the head forward like so, it becomes really tough to brace because my weight is over the front of my leg. Now, it's not just my chest being over, it's my head being over, which is gonna cause me to sort of follow through and stumble. If I keep my head in this position, it gets really hard without counterweights on the backside to keep everything from spilling over. That's the head sort of pushing through and following. But what I think a lot of people do is that we've heard the phrase before, if you want more speed, spin, and power, just reach further back. I lurk around several forums and I watch people say, it looks like you've got more room for a reach back there. Go for more of a reach back. And so what they try to do is, instead of letting their shoulders sort of adjust and allow that reach back to extend further back, we physically try to reach further back. But from right here, how am I supposed to get more reach back? Because I've coiled properly, I'm set up properly. Well, the only option is to sort of throw my head back there and get the disc further back. The problem is, you can now see that I'm in a very vulnerable position and a very weak position in order to go that way. And unfortunately, I'm trying to throw that way. So to get the engine started, to get everything moving, I'm gonna have to inject a lot of power, speed, momentum, energy, all of it to try to get the ball moving forward. Now, in very rare cases, can I be this far back and get my body to move in a flat level plane to bring the disc forward and around. Most often what's gonna end up happening is I'm going to slam the door. I'm gonna try to break down the door. And in order to do that, I'm going to bring into a powerful position where the elbow is gonna drop. I'm gonna lean into it. It's gonna pin itself to my body. And as I do this, the disc is gonna travel upwards and I'm gonna start spinning and pivoting. Why? Because I've started moving this way and my body's like, hey, silly man, have you eaten your rotatos today? So now I'm rotating forward and I'm trying to spin so that I can get forward and take a look at my shot, and my head is traveling forward because I've used so much energy and power to sort of inject and get the disc moving. And now my elbow's pinched. I'm behind. Everything is lagging behind. And this disc can no longer find another acceleration point, boop, to get back out, which allows me to go to the fast opening of from chest outwards. So in doing this, I had to inject so much spin, speed, and power back here that by the time I get to the front of the throw, I want to go fast. I want to send that acceleration point, but I realistically have almost nothing left in the tank to actually fire at this point. So the shot's going to come out weak, and unless I have really strong wrist position or hand position on the disc, I'm actually going to end up with a minimal amount of snap as well. And if my elbow's pinched to my body, I'm going to externally rotate. Trust me, I feel this one in my soul. And because I'm externally rotating, I'm not actually able to hold on to the disc properly because my hand's running away from the disc. And I've usually come in and slammed the disc, and so as I externally rotate, I'm throwing that disc super nose up and super skied out, and therefore we're not going very far because nose up discs that are that extreme are not going to go very far. It's more like a instead of a flying saucer riding the wind, it's more like a pie pan saying yum 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 yum, eating up all that precious airspace. So how do we adjust accordingly? We watch where our head position is if we want to accelerate at the correct time of the throw. We don't want our head all the way back here because this is not great and it puts me in, like I said, a bad position. Mike Strauss calls it the upside down uppercase Y versus the upside down lowercase y. The lowercase y is this right here, where I have this really straight line coming straight up and I'm reaching the disc back. Not a powerful position. Takes a lot of momentum to get back to here, which is that uppercase Y, which is a powerful position where I can actually get the elbow out in front. So by keeping the head more centered between the legs and using the coil with the shoulders and reaching back here, I stay in a powerful position and I stay in a balanced athletic position where I'm on my toes and I can push myself into the rotation. Now, when does the acceleration really happen? Or I guess more importantly, what starts the rotation? Am I starting the rotation with my arm? Am I starting the rotation with my body? What am I doing, Mr. YouTube man? Honestly, that's another video for another day because there are some differing opinions on this one, and that's not what the focus of the video is about. But there are plenty of amazing coaches who have videos on this. So if you want to look on what starts the rotation, feel free to look those up. Once again, not the goal of this one. Once I'm in this balanced position and I'm coming through with the shot, I want to make sure that a couple of things are happening. I want to make sure that I get to a power pocket position. We want to go ahead and adjust power pocket. Originally, power pocket was designed as for a right-handed player, the disc being sort of on the left pec, being right here. If you wanted the start of deep pocket, it's disc to the center chest. And if you want to be an insanity man like Anthony Barella and David Wiggins Jr., they're like outside of the right pec. This is crazy, and very few people are going to achieve this in life. This is totally fine. But what's happening is because we are waiting and trying to accelerate so early and accelerate back here, by the time we get to these power positions, we're wanting to rotate. And so if we aren't rotating our shoulders properly, what we're doing is we're getting the disc super far behind us and ending up in super weak positions because our hips aren't firing and our shoulders aren't turning and our neck's backwards like this. And I don't know that at the end of the day that this is going to be max distance form, but I do think it's going to teach you how to get that arm out in the head so that it can get into this explosive position on the other side. So still very valid, still very helpful, and especially if you're an early accelerator, thinking about getting that disc moving is fantastic. We just don't want to leave your head in that position. Now, when I first started teaching this concept, I talked about being slow, fast on the other side, almost at that pace. Slow, fast. And then eventually you want this fast to be the pace that you're coming in on the back side of it. And I think if you're trying to train your arm and how to do this properly, I don't think that's the end all. I don't think that's bad. Thinking of it once again as slow, and then we accelerate right at the very end of the shot. For instance, that absolutely no effort. We're talking to the camera, 43 miles an hour. Now it becomes a lot harder to hit those speeds when I try to accelerate from all the way back here. It literally didn't even register it. Now, an area of my game that I feel like actually encapsulates this a lot is that flick of the wrist upshot that we talked about before. I'm standing there on an upshot and I have the disc right here and I'm just sending it forward. That allows me to get about 150 feet of upshot distance that is nice and controlled and sending the disc forward. That is the last part of the throw, and it is just embracing that acceleration of from the fastest point of my throw hitting it. If you are someone who accelerates on the back side of the throw or the early part of the throw, however you want to determine it, I promise you that getting used to this is going to feel like you are going to grip lock it to kingdom come. And man, I wish I could say like it's not going to happen. Like you're just not going to grip lock this. But if you are able to get the head position a little better so that you're a little more balanced and you're not having to use so much to get you this position, you're going to end up with so much extra juice in the tank when you actually get to the launching portion of the throw, where if you're from here, you're like, wow, I still have so much left. Wham! And you slam open that door and you fling that arm as fast as you can. There's just going to be more power. You're going to see more kind of everything. But the issue in this is that for most people who are accelerating on the back end or the deepest part of their reach back and they're coming here, their head is actually traveling so far forward, but because they have very little left in the tank and we've gotten into really weak positions, the disc is coming out kind of fluffed and really soft, so it's not really traveling over to the right. Whereas if I take that same hand position and then my head is traveled forward and from here, I go to accelerate, I am going to yeet that thing all the way off to the right for our right-handed players. So how do we counteract this? We're using the rotation and the slow move to get our head forward, but not necessarily like crazy far forward. I don't want it crazy far back, and I really don't want it facing the target. Now, Overthrow had Zach Nash on their channel, and Zach is probably one of the more forward-facing throwers who throws pretty far, and he's at like 10 o'clock to maybe 11 o'clock at the most open, so that his hand is accelerating from here and he's still not entirely squared up to having his shoulders facing the target entirely. We want to be offset a little bit so that when things are hitting and that brace is hitting and then we go to that acceleration point, the whip is really snapping right out here at its most extreme point. And it's almost, if you think about throwing a dart, how I'm not going to throw the dart like here, I'm not stabbing it. The parabolic, I don't know what the actual word here is. As that swing comes down, the dart fires alongside. The same thing is happening as the swing comes out, and it is whipping down the straight line. And once again, the more that I turn my head to anticipate the shot and look for the shot, even if I get this timing correct, I still have the potential to yeet that thing way off to the right with my head position, because where the head goes, the body will follow. Okay, so we've thrown a lot of concepts at you. I really want the comments to kind of fuel this, but I really do believe that for people who can embrace this acceleration at the end of the shot, even if you're just standing there watching this video, standing up and feeling the difference between trying to yank from back here versus coming through and popping at the end of the shot is just dramatically different. So in doing some standstills, I want to kind of demonstrate getting back into this weak position and trying to just yank this thing forward. And then even right now, when I'm in the middle of some form change, coming through and feeling that difference between firing it out front, how much smoother and easier that acceleration seems to be. So let's try for the deep reach back. 49.4 miles an hour. Here we go. 53.0. And you can see how much harder I'm having to work on these shots. 45.3. So now if we focus on, this was back here trying to give everything I have, and that's me reaching low. If I go higher, it's the same issue, but then my nose angle becomes drastically worse. So now trying to think about accelerating on the back end of the shot, 56.7 miles an hour. And that looked way and felt way more effortless than the other option. See, now there, I tried to accelerate here and I lost it. 53, I think it said. Let's try one more time, shall we? Bang, 54.9 miles an hour. The difference, yes, there was a 53 mile an hour throw from back there, but I think if we look at the averages of the 40s and that 53 versus 53, 54, 56, and I feel much more upright, ready to fire and hit those shots on a consistent basis. We want to accelerate. Don't be Brian, be Dom Toretto. Don't hit the nos back here. Don't go too soon, Junior. We're gonna rotate into the shot and accelerate on the backside of this. So the final thought that I'll give here is that if you wanna try this, I would encourage you, if you wanna go for a reach back or if you wanna go on a run up, that's fine. Like I said, just know that you're gonna feel like you're waiting in the shot so long because it's like, I wanna fire, and now fire and send the cannons, send everything forward. I would encourage you to try practicing this from the standstill first. Try them from this sort of flick of the wrist upshot so that you can feel what it's like from this curled power pocket position to just accelerate and send the hand. Because I bet for lots of you out there that just doing this drill on upshots, you're gonna see that you're able to, if you send the hand properly, hit 200 feet with just firing the shot like so. When we choose to accelerate has so much impact on how the shot's gonna go. And I'll close with talking about the pros and where I think this really shines for the pros. When I think about Simon Lizotte, Anthony Barella, those guys who throw crazy far and watching them throw their discs, a lot of people will say that their throws look effortless. And I think one of the biggest reasons that their throws look effortless is because their effort is coming so late into the shot. It's in that split second ride the thunder at the end of the shot. Where lots of us, when we're coming into it, are so far back that it takes an immense amount of effort to get us into the shot. They are smooth and effortless getting into their shot. So it seems like, wow, they're not even trying to get there because they're saving all of the juice, all of the nos for that last hit. And it's why it doesn't seem like they're going very fast, and yet they put up these huge tech disc numbers and they're able to crush these discs so far. It's because they're just bottling up the fire, bottling up the juice until the very end of the shot and just absolutely letting the disc rip out and explode onto the course. Because when you choose to accelerate, you only get one shot, one opportunity. These are all the distances you wanted. Are you gonna let it slip, are you gonna let it fly? I hope this video was helpful, and honestly, I think it's just such an important concept that's really not being talked about that often out there on the internet. I really hope that this helps you if you're seeing the Robbie C channel for the first time, and if you're a longtime watcher, thank you so much for the longtime support, and I hope this video is helpful for you as well. This is a distance concept that just, I really believe, it's not getting talked about a whole lot in the public eye, and yet it's super important, and it's coming up in lessons from talking to coaches on a regular basis. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, obviously, we would love the support in you doing all of the YouTube things. I just hope that your day gets amazing and that you can have a fantastic day and make it fantastic for someone else too. So as always, thank you for watching, but for now, we're gonna leave you with the birdie.